I'm putting so much pressure on myself to try to introduce you properly. And I think it would probably just be better if you just let us know who you are, say hello to our world, which is not as big as your world, but there may be some people that don't know you.
Wow. Well, I hope there's some people that don't know me, because then we become friends.
That's exactly what I'm aiming to do.
I am Mason's father's one of his dear friends. That's who I am.
Fantastic.
No, I grew up with Mason's dad, Robert, and I'm also the drummer for Pink.
Mm-hmm.
And I played drums with a lot of cool artists like Billy Idol, Simple Minds, Cher, and Velvet, and Sheryl Crow. And I've spent many, many years touring the world, 32 years, I believe. And then I parlayed that into a speaking career. I started to use music as a metaphor for top performance and sort of leveraged all my experience and my abilities, and realized that I had something to say that could apply to first the college market and now the corporate market. And as you can see, I've got my studio right behind me. We had literally just built a studio right next to our house. It was 95% done when COVID hit. It's actually a photo studio for my wife.
Nice.
And I've sort of usurped it sometimes, because now I do these virtual keynote presentations. I mean, I've got some pretty big clients I've spoken for, like your American Express and Dell, IBM, Walmart.
So rather major companies.
This company with Jessica Alba. So,
which company with Jessica Alba?
The Honest Company? Is that it?
It's $1 billion clothing company that Jessica Alba created. But mostly, the way that I look at myself, that all sounds fine and dandy and glitzy and lots of stardom and lots of corporate association. But I discovered many years ago that I'm actually really here to be of service. And everything that I do is to be of service. I'm in the service industry. When I'm on stage, I'm there to be of service to the artist I'm playing with, like Pink. I'm there to be of service to the band, to the audience, to the crew members.
What I wanted to stop you with, first of all, I could not have done a better job introducing you. That's why I had you introduce yourself. But it was interesting. What always came to me is that you, let's call it, qualify yourself by explaining all these incredible individuals you work with, these amazing companies you work with, and stereotypically, you're a rock star. And then you just started ending on being of service, right? How does one cultivate this attitude where you're not getting caught up in this stereotypical sex, drugs, rock and roll lifestyle that's from the outside looking in, full of a lot of ego, glitz, and glamour, and navigate that way to truly want to be of service? That's one of the most interesting things to me, because that's something I want to learn for myself, and I believe a lot of people can learn. And that's what we're trying to do on this podcast, is speak about useful things, being of service, in your words.
Well, it depends on how you look at things. I wrote one book previously, and I'm co-writing this next book, and it's all on the power of attitude.
Okay.
And that to me has become the most potent and poignant part of my life, is the understanding that we cannot control what happens to us. I mean, there's certain things we can control, but there's so many things we can't, as evidenced by this crazy pandemic and all the stuff that's come upon us. But we always, I'm talking about right now, every single one of you, myself included, we always have the power to shift, change, or control our attitudes about what happens to us. And that brings the power, puts the power back in us.
I love that, and it's a beautiful, articulate statement. But how does one control and have that attitude and have come from that place if they're not there yet?
It takes mindfulness. It takes making a decision. I can give you a few examples of what I call attitude shifts. because the attitude is actually just the basis of this amazing, really big and powerful formula.
Okay.
And it's the reason why attitude is so important, is your attitude really is your point of view. It's where you're looking from. It's your vantage point. How you see the world is based on your attitude. How you see others, how you see yourself is based on your attitude. And the story you tell yourself and the stories that you've been telling yourself your whole life.
There's this one speaker who said something that we talk to ourselves more than any person talks to us throughout the day, right? What was it that you were telling yourself to keep? I want to start there, not even just with the attitude, or maybe how you cultivated the attitude to not get caught up in a life of ego, glitz, and glamour. Like I listened to another episode of a podcast that you were on. You have 25,000 miles of airline credit, or 25,000 miles of airline credits, or $25,000 of airline credits. You're getting flown around the world to do these interesting things with interesting people. Yet, as Shane was telling me, what he loves about you is he can tell that you're genuine, but how were you so genuine in an industry that wasn't genuine?
And then also, on top of that, also, did you have like a dark spell in your life ever that led you to this kind of life of being of service and being in the, being a rock star and touring with some of the biggest bands in the world and going all over, every different country and being treated with all of these ways and everything being thrown at you? Did you ever have setbacks and, some sort of darkness in your life that brought you to some sort of epiphany or life-changing events that made you have that decision or call to action? Or was it something that you always innately just had?
I mean, I've had a lot of dark challenges in my life. Sure. Everything from having an ex-wife that nearly died of cancer twice, to having cancer myself, to having bouts of anxiety. And I think that's where I've learned. What happened was I realized that I needed to learn tools. And so I became philosophical. One of the things I did is I grew up and when I was 12 years old, I had really bad anxiety, just about growing up. And so I went and saw a therapist. And then when I was 19, I had more bad anxiety just about becoming an adult, and went and saw a therapist and started developing an understanding that I needed tools. And this is before they just threw drugs inside of kids to make them feel better. Right? So for me, it was a matter of developing tools. So when I talk about these formulas, like I never finished the attitude formula, which I'd like to finish because I think it's really critical.
No, of course.
Helpful to the listeners. But it is about developing tools and ways of navigating and understanding so you can cope. Okay. It happens to do with things that we learn at different points of our life. And also experiences that are life-changing. One example, right? I had grown up playing music. Music was natural to me. I was good at it. So I was fortunate that I had this God-given talent, and all I needed to do was practice hard and cultivate it. So I did. But I started to realize that it wasn't about me. I started to realize early on, and what happened was I was just a drummer wanting to play everything I knew how to play. Then I became a band leader. Then I realized, wow, the drums have their position, but if you look at the aggregate, you understand how the whole group needs to work and the dynamics and the communication and even the way the musical parts need to be structured. It's humbling. Sure. And you start to understand and empathize, and that's when I started to formulate the idea of being of service, because I realized that everybody wants to talk. Well, I realized that, it wasn't about me playing every lick and every chop. When I began to lead my own band and produce music, I started to realize how important the aggregate was, how important it really was to be a great band member and communicate and be of service to everybody else. And one thing I realized early on is that I needed to learn how to listen, because everybody wants to talk. If you're the one that knows how to listen, then people love to be around you, or they want you to be in their band, quote unquote, in their team, quote unquote, because they feel heard.
People appreciate that. I can attest to that from my own experience. People, when you bring something up that somebody said, they're like, "Oh, you caught on to that," and it's like, "Yeah, I was listening." You know, I have two ears and one mouth, as the saying goes. I wanted to ask you as well. How does one find purpose and meaning? And I know that's a very like kind of it's different for everybody, but I feel like my experience in the encounters I've had, and I was lost for a long time too. Some background on me is I was I was raised in a great home, loved all of those things. I was somewhat popular. I was decent at sports, you know.
Yeah.
But I suffered from a terrible drug addiction for many, many years.
Same.
And I think that I sunk so far back, like so far away from, disconnected from reality because I lacked purpose and meaning. I know people cope with that in different ways. Some maybe are healthier ways, but are still unhealthy, whether it's working out or
Gambling too much.
yeah, or just being a workaholic, all of those things that maybe make people successful in the material realm or by society standards, but you know they don't have a sense of purpose and direction because you can have more money, but it becomes useless and you know futile at some point. So, what would be your suggestion or your experience with maybe meeting people that are kind of lost in the world? What am I doing here? What's my purpose? Kind of just lost. That's a question I think that could be valuable to people.
I've discovered a few things. One is that we don't necessarily find our purpose, we create our purpose. And that comes from finding interest in something. That comes from becoming passionate about something. And if the more you start to learn about anything, you're either going to relate to it, you're going to go, wow, I start to resonate with this, and you start to become passionate about it. And the passion is what drives you. So you find things, and things you might not have ever thought you would be passionate about, but the more you learn, it's like an instrument. I even tell my daughter, the better you get at something, the more passion, the more you enjoy it. So it's all about exploring all the options and finding something that you go, wow, I'm passionate about that. That's just the beginning, and that's the problem people have. This passion can be short-lived. Passion is how we do things. Like I tell people, it's not what I play, it's how I play it. But then passion wears down. So what can sustain the passion? What sustains the passion is the purpose. The purpose is why you're doing it. So when you become passionate about something and then you really understand why you're doing it, then what happens is the purpose will drive the passion and the passion drives the purpose, and you become this like cycle of empowerment, and then you really have a sense of fulfillment. Like I made a decision, I had a conversation with Billy Idol once, right?
Okay.
And Billy's like, you know, mate, I used to get on stage and I used to sing every single note, like my life depended on it. And I thought, well, I never thought about my performance that way, but what if I did? Yeah. And then I made a decision that every single time I sit behind the drum set, that every single note I play matters. Every nuance matters. I became so detail-oriented. And what I realized is what I was doing is I was attaching a sense of purpose to every note, real purpose. Like every note means something. Like when I give my speech, every word, every bit of body language, every pause.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Then when I have that purpose, then I become more passionate and it keeps me interested. But it's a decision I make. And I think when people are lost, it's because they're thinking that something's going to find them. Sure. You need to cultivate it. You need to find it. There are 1,000 things that every human being can have a sense of purpose about and a sense of passion about. The other day, last month, a friend of mine has stage 4 cancer, right? Sure. And I kept on asking him, man, what can I do for you? You need money. He needs money. He has to work, and he's got to do chemo while he has to work. He needs money. And I'm thinking, I could sign some symbols and they can give some stuff away. And then I realized, wait a minute. I could call all my friends that are reasonably famous musicians,
Sure.
see who bites, have all them produce, send me videos. I could stand here by myself and I could do a fundraiser. So I did. I raised $30,000 for the guy.
Amazing.
Because I decided that it was my purpose, and then I became passionate about the purpose, and the purpose fed the passion, fed the purpose. We're still raising money for it.
Really?
It no longer has to work. Imagine having stage 4 colorectal cancer, the same thing that Bozeman just died of, and having to work during your fucking chemo.
Couldn't imagine it.
So for me, I just woke up one morning and decided I've got a purpose. I'm going to do this because I can.
You did.
And I did.
That ties in, and so that it sounds like it's a momentum building process, correct? How does the attitude factor in staying connected to that attitude come into play? You said there was that formula before I cut you off on that earlier, but yeah.
And it's so damn simple, but I just put my life on it because I exercise it every single day, right?
This is what I want.
So understand, you have the ability to choose your attitude,
Okay.
right? Why this is so powerful is your attitude is what drives your behavior. Think about that. Think about the power behind that. And your behavior is what determines the consequences of your life.
Sure.
It's A times B equals C. And understanding that you have the power to shift your attitude to drive more desirable behavior and produce different results can make a very big difference. And I sometimes need to shift my attitude 20 times a day to remember the behavior that it is I need to cultivate to create the outcome. So but here's the key, is most people think it's all about your behavior. You need to cultivate your behavior. No, it starts with the attitude, but you need to know the end result. So in other words, you want to dream big, you want to think big. I tell people, right, I'm part of the world class, but the world class begins where your comfort zone ends.
Okay.
So you need to be willing to get outside your comfort zone and create amazing outcomes for yourself, for your work, for your body, for your family. You need to see that. You need to envision it. You need to know that you can do it. Know that it is possible. Just know it's possible, even if you don't exactly know how to be it.
Belief is
then backtrack and think about what behavior would you need to consistently generate to drive those consequences. Then backtrack and go, okay, what attitude do I need? So now I'm going to give you a few examples of attitude shifts. Okay. The simplest, easiest stuff in the world. I get up every single morning. What's the first thing I do? I smile. And it sounds so cheesy. It's so weird. But it's true. When you smile, first it's fake, and then it becomes real. The moment it becomes real, your physiology changes. You realize when you smile, it actually activates hundreds of muscles in your face that send a signal to your body to relax and send endorphins to your brain. So I immediately smile. That's my first attitude shift. And the next thing, I think of 3 people and 3 things for which I'm grateful. You know, gratitude, I just read it. They did a study on gratitude where they took 2 sets of people and they gave them MRIs. Okay. First people did nothing. The other people conjured up everything they could be grateful for in their lives. And they found these people were producing as many endorphins as a low-level antidepressant. That is fucking power, man. That's nuts. The power of gratitude is extraordinary.
When I work with people, because I was working as a counselor in treatment, one of the most effective things for me as a person to change my perspective on attitude on life, I don't do this when I wake up. I do it before I go to bed every night. And I started practicing a minimum of 10 things I'm grateful for every single day. And someone suggested that to me, they said, even when you don't believe it, even when you don't feel grateful, give that gratitude. You'll notice that your perspective on life will change. You'll go through the day understanding different things. There's something truly to that. Agree?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. And it utilizes every single day. I mean, it takes practice and things don't happen overnight.
Yeah, no, it's not easy.
It takes doing the work. I mean, I do the work. A buddy of mine, Tim Sanders, who's a very successful speaker and he was a chief solutions officer for Yahoo, and he's written 2 best-selling books. He said, the greatest thing about being an entrepreneur is you get to pick which 16 hours a day you're going to, or you get to choose your 16 hours a day.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And sleep whatever 8 you want to sleep based on what you choose for your 16 hours.
Yeah, I follow.
I mean, what we're doing now is fun, but it's still work. We're being of service. We're providing. We're setting up a podcast for people. We're jamming our ideas together so we can be of service. The moment that this is done, I'm going to be running my speech because I'm getting up at 6:30 because I'm giving a virtual speech to people in the UK. So I got to start at 7:30 in the frickin' morning.
Heard that.
Here's another great one of my favorite attitude shifts, and it's so simple. I don't have to, I get to.
That's what you say. So
Yeah,
Shane has taught me a lot about life. That's why I do this with him. I always give him so much gratitude for being who he is in my life. And that was one of the main. It's interesting how you guys are clearly both onto something, the way that you guys both go about life, but you guys have come to these conclusions going down different paths. Your path led you to certain conclusions about attitude. And that's something he always preached to me, which you just said, which is quite interesting. I think you guys should both touch on that. It's like, I don't have to, I get to. That's literally, there's a power in choice, in my opinion, to be able to choose to do something. Agreed?
Yeah, there was somebody that I really respected as a spiritual guide and still do, and I still do work with them, and I was meeting with them weekly, but then COVID, it's been a little bit more infrequent. But one premise that that resonated with me is, it's not that, I have to do anything. It's that I get to do this. And for the longest, what's that?
It's a reframe. You're literally reframing the way that you think. It's an attitude shift. Because I have to feels like a chore.
Yes.
Get to feel like a choice.
Right.
And it's funny, if you reframe something as a choice, even if it actually is a chore, you simply have more fun. It makes it more mundane. Also, a have to feels like you're the effect of something, whereas get to feels like you are in the cause position.
Yeah.
And that's a really key thing for me. I always want to feel like I'm causing what I intend to cause rather than being the effect of what I don't want.
Interesting.
And it's a very interesting reframe. These are all, again, they're techniques and they're tactics, but they really do work. And especially for people that have been addicted to drugs,
Sure.
You need to come up with solutions and methods and formulas and practices that work for you. I've been studying so many successful people, both financially and spiritually. Yeah. And I found, I look for continuity. I look for the consistency in their behavior and their attitudes and what they do. One thing I found with most of these great people is, first of all, they get up early. Second of all, they have a routine. So I do both. I get up reasonably early and I have a routine. And part of my routine is, the first thing is smile, then is gratitude. Then I do what I learned from my mentor, Dr. Jim Samuels, who I'm writing my next book with on attitude. He taught me the wins formula. And again, it's so simple. It's an acronym, but what were yesterday's wins? Because here's why it's important. Because when you think of your wins, even your little wins, especially if you're challenged, it's like fuel in the tank. You're thinking of all the little things. So every morning I think of all the wins I had the day before.
Absolutely.
Because it puts me in a celebratory mode. It also puts me in the mode of paying attention to what is working as opposed to what isn't working. And then you're open, once you are looking at your wins and you're celebrating those wins, and it's cutting you kind of in a proud, in a zone, an attitude of strength, because you feel empowered when you are celebrating and paying attention to what is working, right?
Sure.
And then the I stands for improvements, because you're way more willing to look at your improvements if you're first acknowledged your wins, because you feel that sense of power and you feel less resistance. So then I think, okay, what do I need to improve upon?
Sure.
And then N is forecasting your next wins. It's like part of the attitude, behavior, consequence, forecasting the consequences of that day. You know, Tony Robbins calls it envisioning. He envisions himself having the success, feeling it, tasting it. It's just forecasting the wins you're going to have. And then S is, what state would you create? What state would you be in? And some of my examples of states are like joyful confidence or calm release. I might change my state. I might have different goals for each state.
And you identify these states which are most useful to achieve those improvements, correct? I think I read some time ago, The Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. He talks about getting yourself into these resourceful states in order to achieve those. This is kind of that building block process to identify the wins, the improvements, all that type of stuff to get to that point. Am I following correctly?
Yes. And you know, so many of these, most great philosophers have very similar philosophies that might be stated in different ways. I don't think that anything that I talk about is new.
Sure.
Or original, and I don't take credit for it.
Sure.
I believe that I'm a conduit, and I'm in a position where I can leverage who I am and what I've done. That's why I talk about being a fucking service.
Yes. And that's a major thing.
The thing I can do, rather than sit there and beat the drums and count my money.
Sure.
Take that quote-unquote celebrity, and I don't buy it for a minute, because here's the thing for me, man. I don't view myself as a celebrity. I view myself as someone who's of service to celebrities. The ego doesn't have. I mean, I have enough ego to keep myself in shape, to look good, to wear cool clothes. Ego is important for your survival.
Absolutely.
An extraneous amount of ego just makes you focus on yourself and take away from the service that you can be creating for others. So it's about that balance between having self-respect and having done the work so you've earned it, and then turning around and what can I do to be of service? Oh, I can raise $30,000 for a friend who needs money.
Absolutely.
Because I've given myself a new purpose. I can get on this podcast with you guys, and you know, when you're in the middle of trying to figure technical stuff out, and still be of service to your listeners and be of service to you. That's why I do it.
100%. I think that was a major thing when Shane and I were discussing this. One of the most major things that was drawing him to you and what he practiced as a foundation was spiritual principles, and also being of service to others through those spiritual principles. And again, it's interesting how, again, you were saying that you're the conduit, right? He believes the same thing. He's the conduit, but you guys have reached the same conclusion, but different paths. And I believe that's true for many people. I feel like it's the same message, but it's broken down in different ways to make it easier for certain audiences of people to digest the same message. And so the overall message coming from you would be attitude, self-responsibility, like taking self-responsibility for what you can control. Like, what is the overall message? Because he has one. I wanted to kind of make it more concise, of course.
I mean, you have one too, though. You point at me like I have a monopoly. I'm just a guy.
I don't think you have a monopoly. I learn a lot from you. I'll never take credit. I feel like I'm sitting here because of you. I give you a lot of credit for that. You know, so that's why I always say that. I try to be as humble as possible. I could always say that I know these things, which I may, but when I'm sitting in a room with you, I always give it to you, because I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't learn the things from you that I learned. Does that make sense?
Buddy.
Love you too, my friend.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why. But yeah.
I love the love between you guys and the mutual respect. And I'll tell you something else about it. Makes me think about purpose.
Yeah.
Again, because when you find something that seems to be your purpose, the universe will give you signs, or you will get signs that you will be empowered, or you'll find ways to do things or manifest things because you are on quote unquote on purpose. The fact that you guys have created this podcast, the fact that you guys are doing this means you are on purpose. The fact that I'm here, the fact that I've created the studio, the fact that I raised the money for my friend, the fact that I've created the career I've created means that I am on purpose. My purpose is aligned with the universe. So one good way to know, because you asked earlier about purpose, is if things aren't working, you keep on running into roadblocks that seem insurmountable, you might want to re-examine that purpose that you've given yourself. And it might just be that part of it is to overcome the roadblocks. It might be that you are looking in the wrong place. And that's for you to decide authentically and really look inside. Because there have been plenty of things I've tried, plenty of people I've approached, and it didn't lead to anything. Okay, so be it. That's cool. Because there have been plenty of other things I've done that have.
Sure.
And the universe tends to give me signs and rewards, whether you call it spirituality, whether you call it just being in the groove, what do you call it, being in sync with the universe.
Sure.
That's purpose. That's getting acknowledgement.
Yeah, I call it just being connected, right? And I think one of the key premises as well that you've been touching on but haven't exactly said is that, and you said it in a more eloquent way and gave amazing examples, is that to find all of these things and to do these things, everything is backed up and has to be by actionable steps, right? If things aren't working, you have to reassess. And there's so many parallels to what he talked about with the wins and to look back. Like one thing that I've learned to do, and Mason as well, is that we reflect on the 24 hours that we just went through, right? Where were the wins? Where were the shortcomings? Where did I fall short? What good things did I do, right? It can't always be negative. Where did I miss the mark? What didn't I do, right? Because then it's overwhelming and it's like, oh, it puts me back in this place of I'm not good enough and this and like what you touched on is great, and I'm learning, and there's there's some stuff I'll talk to you on offline about, because I know you do one-on-one coaching as well. Is that right?
I do.
Yeah. We'll get to that, but it's this formula that you're always learning. But the thing is that I love is that it's practical. You said earlier that you didn't invent anything, right? We didn't invent anything either.
Yeah.
But here we are from two different complete walks, two different sides of the world, really, and here we are. And we live we have similar outlooks and principles that we live by. And the basis for me is that it's practical, because if it wasn't practical, I don't know that I would do them every day. It doesn't mean that I do them every day, but they are practical and they're easy to do. And one other thing that I like too is that it doesn't happen overnight, right? We're all in this society to get rich quick, get in shape quickly, the shortcuts. That stuff doesn't work. I've tried every shortcut imaginable in life to get ahead, right? 100%. And it's just, maybe I got there in the kind of like gray area, but it wasn't fulfilling because I didn't truly earn it and work for it. So what happened? It didn't last. And I wanted to touch on those things. I think it's amazing how, the stuff that we've been talking about in this short time to the parallels that we have in our life. And I think anybody can incorporate them into their own lives. It's about seeking and taking action and seeing what works, what doesn't, what are new things I can add, what are some old things that are holding me back.
Thinking of others 100%. That brings me back home. If I'm too caught up in my own stuff, because it will. There's days I'm much more connected than others. And when I try to bring myself back in with gratitude, exercising that muscle, quote unquote, and thinking of other people, makes it less about me. I can focus on the next actionable step, which he's taught me. And I feel like you talk about what the next actionable step is. So I want to always touch on this because it's important, in my opinion, for people to hear this kind of stuff, to reiterate that they do have control to change and make their life just a little bit better. But it's not this overnight fix. It's not like taking a shot of tequila and then you're going to get this rush and you're going to get this feeling. It's a process, at least in my experience, to get to where I'm at, to sit here and talk to you, feel the way I feel about life, and have the impact that I can have on others. I try to say that as humbly as possible. And same with him. It's a very long process, which was so far different than what my outlook on life used to be. I wanted it now. I wanted shortcuts. I wanted to blame other people for my shortcomings, and I didn't care about others. And it's a 180 from that mindset. And it's quite interesting. He practices that You practice that. I do my best to practice that. And here we are. I think that's such a fantastic thing.
I think that's beautiful. I mean, Dr. Jim has this great saying, and it's like, reality is the one possibility that destroys all others. So, in other words, there's just a certain amount of time that stuff takes. And you can try to resist it. You can try to take shortcuts. You're going to get your ass kicked. By the same token, I also feel like you can spend too much time on certain things. So it is really about finding the balance. But that's why I also if you look at the consequence that you're trying to produce, and the behavior you would need to generate, and that's the actions you would need to take, then you really want to clarify these actions as much as you possibly can. To know, and you make adjustments like you were talking about. It's like you might navigate things differently. So you're doing something, you see what works, you see what doesn't work, and you need to really pay a lot of attention. And there are a few things. I also am very cognizant of opportunities.
Yes.
Because people miss opportunities all the time. And I believe that a lot of my success is based on just recognizing opportunities or inventing opportunities, like I did with my friend's cancer benefit.
100%.
But here's a little story early in my career.
Okay.
So I auditioned for the band Foreigner, right? That's one of the bands I played with off and on for many years. You know, they did that. Feels like the first time.
I know. I want to know what love is. Yeah.
Yes, 17 top 10 hits. Anyway,
17 top 10 hits. No big deal.
So I got the gig, and I didn't hear from these guys for like a month. And then a buddy of mine's recording in one of these big recording studios in LA. He's like, "Hey man, Foreigner was recording in the studio next door. Aren't you playing with them?" I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So I called the manager on the phone and I said, "Kevin, what's up, dude? I got the gig. I'm the drummer." He said, "Yeah, you are, but we hired this producer who feels safe using the drummer that he normally uses, a guy by the name of Tal Bergman that I know, who's an amazing drummer." And I understood that. You know, I get it. He wants to bring in his guy because drums, especially in the studio, is a very, very precise thing. If you don't trust somebody, you may want to bring in somebody that you trust.
Sure.
So what did I do? I said, "Kevin, would you give me Keith Forsey's number?" And because I recognized an opportunity. And not like I wasn't scared shitless, I was. But I called him on the phone. Hands shaking, phone in hand.
Really?
Left him a message. Didn't even get him in person. Said, "Keith, listen, this is Mark Schulman. I know you're producing Foreigner, and I know you use Tal, and Tal's a great drummer. He's a friend of mine. I would just love it if you would give me a shot because I got the gig with the band. If you ever need a drummer and Tal can't do it, give me a call." Right? Sure as hell late enough, 3 months later, I get a call from Keith, very hyper-British man. Saying, "Mark, this is Keith Forsey. Listen, I'm doing a track for the Beverly Hills Top 3 record. It's Pointer Sisters track, man. I need a drummer. Can you come in?" I'm like, damn straight I can come in.
Hell yeah.
So I came in, and again, this is the universe like giving you the sign. This was back in the days of New Jack Swing, like jig, 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 jig. But he wanted real drums. He wanted hard-hitting, funky New Jack Swing. Well, I could play the shit out of that. So I came in, I charted out the song, I played it down, first take. I run in, and he gives me this big old hug. He's like, "Mate, that was amazing." Well, if you did a little research, you would find out that Keith Forsey was the co-writer and producer for Billy Idol, all of his big hits. Keith Forsey was the writer and producer of Simple Minds' biggest hits. Well, if you look at my resume, it just so happens, what a coincidence. I played with both Billy Idol and Simple Minds. No freaking coincidence. No. It's because I recognized the opportunity, which then led to me getting called by, and Keith wasn't even producing the Billy Idol session, but I got called to play on the end title theme for the movie Speed. Remember that movie with Keanu
Reeves and
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, of course.
Love Sandra Bullock.
Yeah. And just so happens Billy's drummer was like in rehab, so the next 8 years I was Billy's drummer, you know?
No shit.
Then Keith calls me out of the blue like, I got hired to do one more song for Simple Minds. He had written Don't You Forget About Me for the Breakfast Club. It's their biggest hit.
Got it.
And just so happens they had a fight with their drummer, or he quit, or something happened, and one song turned into a whole record, turned into a tour, and then I was in Simple Minds. The point of bringing up these stories is because I recognized opportunities and took advantage of them when most people really wouldn't have, especially musicians. Musicians are not notorious for being assertive and picking up the phone.
No.
Well, when you said that,
practicing every lick they know and hoping they're going to get discovered. My speaking career as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I created this speaking career, created something out of nothing. I was giving drum clinics, and at one point I realized as I was talking to another drummer that he had done a motivational gig, and I thought I could do that. So then I needed to do a lot of work. I studied with 2 speaking coaches, an acting coach, a director, a storyteller. I learned about the corporate world and how I would need to change my content. I practiced in front of mirrors, and I took all of the stuff that I had learned from doing drum clinics and created a corporate speech, a corporate keynote. I call it a rock show disguised as a keynote.
Yeah.
That has value, but it's a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
But I literally created something out of nothing. And I illegally got a listing of all the agents, the bureaus, and I cold called every single one. Talk about doing the work.
Yeah.
But I had a pretty damn good opening line because at the time I'm like, hey, this is Mark Schulman. I'm the drummer for Pink, and I do this very high top performance presentation with drumming, and I use music as a metaphor for top performance. Can I have 30 seconds of your time? But that takes balls, man.
Yeah, you have to have balls that go clank for that.
Yeah, the work. Yeah. I'm just enforcing what you guys said earlier about you need to do the work. And I certainly was afraid, but as we talked about earlier, the chemistry in the body for fear and excitement are actually the same. It's just our perception and our projection of that chemistry that determines our experience.
Sure.
So the very things that we're the most afraid of, I'm not talking about real fear, somebody holding a gun to your head. I'm talking about the self-imposed fear that you had, that I had, that is on the flip side of that is the excitement. It's the reward. So if you can just pick up the phone with that shaking hand of yours and make that call, you will get to the exciting part because they are the same thing. The things that are the most important to us, we don't just go, oh, that's cool. Yeah, man, I'm excited.
Absolutely.
No fucking way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Passionate beings, man. That's what drives us. And so these are the things I live by. I understand if I have a fear about something, like, you're damn straight I've got fear about doing this presentation in the morning. But I'm also really excited because the little bit of fear like raises my adrenaline. It makes me a little bit more acute, a little bit more hyper aware because I've got my adrenaline up. It's good for you. You want.
So fear's your friend is what you're saying. Because I used to be ruled by fear. It used to cause me to lie a lot. It used to cause me to manipulate a lot because I was so fearful about failing, what other people thought of me, what I thought other people would think of me. I couldn't pick up a phone, pursue things that I care about. It's a terrible experience to be ruled by anxiety and fear. And I think that was one of Shane's main issues is fear. And I never had any courage to combat that fear or have that perspective where I'm like, this anxiety and this fear is where the opportunity lies. Would you say that's fair? Like on the other side of fear, you said is excitement.
Again, you need to assess what is actual fear versus self-imposed fear. And, most anxiety is self-imposed, and we're replaying old tapes in our head. It's not present time at all. If you were present time, you go like, the truth is, there is no saber-toothed tiger. There is nobody holding a gun to my head.
Yeah.
I've got shelter. I've got clothing. Reality is, I'm fine.
It's true. Your life's not in danger.
Right. And that's the difference. And you just need to have the guts enough in that one moment to pick up that damn phone and make that call.
Sure.
And, again, we get back to purpose because you might be focused on the wrong thing. You might have fear because you are doing something dangerous or that can lead to something dangerous. If you're a drug dealer or if you're putting yourself in a precarious position.
Sure.
You should be freaking afraid. Like I tell people, if I go on stage and I'm not prepared, I damn well should be afraid.
Absolutely.
I was going to do the speech tomorrow, and I hadn't practiced it 1,000 times. I get on the treadmill every day and practice my speech.
Really?
Every day. Well, I miss a few days.
Yeah, but still.
Every day. I keep myself fresh because I want to be on my game. I do the work. I'm, again, supporting you guys, what you said earlier. You do the work, but I do it with joy. I do it with grace, and I do it with get to. Because I wake up and I go, another thing I do, when you said this earlier, I wanted to comment on this, is about the 24 hours. One of the first things I do in the morning is I wake up and I learn this from one of these entrepreneurs, wow, 24 brand new hours.
Yeah.
I think Jay Shetty said that. I'd rather see it as an opportunity than a failure.
Sure.
I'd rather see what can I create today? What can I do? And then Dr. Joe Dispenza I follow. And
yeah.
Dispenza's thing is about creating your own reality, having to do with quantum physics, a whole other conversation.
Whole other conversation,
but
100%.
He says, what can I do today that I would have never done? And have the universe give me a sign that I would never have expected that I'm doing something that is, as you say, Shane, connected, that I'm doing the right thing, that I'm in the right place.
You have something else to say, Mark?
No, I was just going to say, we need to close out soon. But
yeah, sure. I can take us home.
Yeah, take us home. Take us home.
Yeah, it's getting loud out there.
It's getting loud. Do you hear that, Mark?
They're rioting.
By the way, we're the studio's in downtown LA, and they're marching behind us right now.
It's getting loud out there right now.
Wow, right? Oh man, this is real life. We're living it.
This is real life stuff.
Very exciting and tumultuous times. It's part of the reality.
Absolutely.
I just want to commend you, and I also I have a very good barometer, and I've never met you, but I have a good sense of bullshit, not bullshit. And when I first saw your videos, and by the way, Mark has a beautiful website, and you can check it out.
MarkSchulman.com.
Is that correct, Mark?
Yes, I just re-edited my virtual keynote, just re-edited my site. We're going to rebuild the site again. I'm constantly thinking of ways of improving my marketing and my branding. I never sit on my laurels.
Fantastic.
You never we try not to rest on our laurels either.
Yeah, we try our best. We're behind you, but we'll try to catch up.
I just wanted to say, when I saw it and I got the chills, and I'm like, this guy's for real. He's not like a charlatan.
Yeah.
He's not pulling anybody's legs. He's filled, and he's connected, and he's energetic, and he truly loves what he does. And I've never met you. God willing, one day in the future we will meet. You've inspired me in the short time that I've done my little homework and had this
conversation
hour or so session. And I just want to say there's so many parallels that we both practice, and Mason practices in his life, and it's comforting to know. And I did know this internally, but it's comforting to know somebody successful like you has almost the same foundation and
outlook,
building blocks
100%.
and outlook. And I just want to thank you for your time, and I'm so grateful that you came on the show and shared a wealth of information. I'm excited to go back. And
Mark, literally, we could have really gone in this for 2 or 3 hours. Could have gone differently. Next time we'll have it a little more smoother. We want it in person because we want to read this energy in person, but there's a lot we want to dig into. But thank you for giving us the time and being patient with us when we didn't have our shit together. Not excusing my French, but it was more than kind of you.
Let me say something first. First of all, how old are you guys?
30.
I'm 33.
30 and 33. So you guys have such amazing insights and knowledge for your age. I commend you. And I'm really just tip my hat to you for making this happen. You created something out of nothing. Here I am, here we are. We're giving great information. what my dear friend Steven Sturr, another guy we grew up with, says brain jam. We're brain jamming, man.
We're brain jamming.
And it's great.
I love it.
You know, last time I saw you, Mason, was your sister's bat mitzvah, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Olivia's
I'm gonna give you the biggest man hug when it's safe.
Yeah, when it's safe.
I'll embrace you, brother. I'm excited. I can't wait.
Yeah. So thank you, man. It's been such a joy and pleasure, and I'm honored to have been here.
No, it's our honor.
Us too. We wish you all the best on your speech tomorrow, and we'll definitely keep in touch. God bless you, Mark. Thank you so much.
Hey, namaste, gentlemen. Woo!
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you and your time. That's it for this episode, boys. All right, Mark.
See you, Mark.